My grandma moved into a little apartment built onto the back of my aunt and uncle's house about 11 years ago with 1 bedroom, 1 sitting room, 1 bathroom, and no kitchen. It's been a drag. Here's my story. January of my 7th grade year, it was coming to the point where my grandpa was going to die soon. He was suffering from thyroid cancer. My grandma was unable to afford her big 3,213 square foot house with 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a pool, big rooms, and easy parking. My grandma originally planned to move into Mosswood condominiums since she knows people who live there and it's close to where she lived. My grandfather, before he died, requested my aunt to build an apartment off of their house with 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and 1 sitting room. March of my 7th grade year, my grandfather died. We were all very sad when he died. My Uncle George from New York City revealed his true nature. He doesn't like to help out that much in the family, and he doesn't take the adult life very seriously. He and his family bailed out on all the traditions forever and made terrible, awful excuses on why he bailed out on them. He participated traditions with his friends in Boston, the Jersey Shore, and Washington, D.C., and those locations are farther than Fairfield, Connecticut. Nobody in the family did anything. Family is family, and we must get together and help out. Family always comes first. Friends, long-distance friends, and traveling all come second. More importantly than freedom when being an adult, you also gotta take much more responsibilities. Construction of my grandma's apartment began later in the summer. Late May of my 8th grade year, my grandma sold her house and moved into her half-in-law apartment. My grandma's half-in-law apartment has become a pain in the neck. It's been hard to visit her since she shares the same kitchen and walkway as my aunt and uncle. As a result, she calls way too much. The problem with these excessive calls is that only one person at a time can hear what she's saying, so we don't know what she's saying on the other line, so we don't know whether or not an emergency is occurring. The real thing with that is that in-law apartments are meant to be separate from the house. The sitting room, bathroom, and bedroom she has didn't exist before the construction began and before she had moved in. Before, my aunt and uncle had windows in their kitchen, a screened-in porch, a larger deck, an entrance from driveway onto deck, a fence, a balcony, a stone wall, a cherry blossom tree that my aunt got as a present, and no playroom in the basement. My aunt also has to spend a lot of time taking care of my grandma, in which she cannot do all the time. It takes up time from doing fun activities and could even keep me from doing night activities if my aunt and her family are away. It would be triple the amount of work for my Uncle George and his family to stay. There are no extra bedrooms in the family. My grandma's apartment is too tiny. My aunt already spends her time taking care of grandma. My house and my uncle's Paul's house aren't available, and it costs money to spend the night at a hotel, and which could result in my Uncle George and his family to not come to Fairfield, Connecticut. The real thing is that my aunt and uncle aren't professional senior caregivers. They're not meant to be there for my grandma all the times and have other jobs they work for instead. Senior care is very different than childcare. Childcare, you can teach your children how to be mature later in life and can even take your children out to explore the world. Seniors, on the other hand, are slowing down later in life and need more care at times you're unavailable. My grandma's place is not a multi-housing with neighbors connected to her to keep her company all the time. It's a regular house with my aunt and uncle, and that's it. It's not a facility with multiple caregivers to be there for her all the time. It's a house. The problem with giving up a job to care for an elderly parent is that it could cause financial problems and could even affect the economy. When my grandpa was sick, we all had to pitch in and take care of him since my grandma couldn't take care of him all the time. My grandpa's sickness was very different with my grandma living with my aunt and uncle. My grandpa's sickness was just a temporary case that only lasted for 2 to 5 months, while my grandma living with my aunt and uncle is a permanent case going on for years. 3 months later, I started high school. I started attending high school with my aunt and my cousin. It was also around the same time where I was also dealing with some issues going on in school. Concert choir couldn't fit into my schedule because Learning Center had to meet every day. I was assigned to be in all collaborative classes. Too many students from my middle school applied to private high schools. We had an 8-period daily schedule where we had to choose between a class and a lunch. We had a science lab mini period. We had awful snacks and drinks after the strict health policy. Not enough food selections at lunchtime, and a lot of activity not going the right way. Due to the fact I at first assumed George's bailout traditions were temporary, it took me around this time to realize that all of them were permanent. Because of all these issues occurring in school, family, and life in general, I started dealing with depression. It became hard for me to talk about the family problems with my friends because with my aunt and my cousin in the same school as me, my cousin invites them all over to his place where my grandma lives. I didn't know how to explain the real situation either. With the science lab mini period decreasing access to electives, the 8-period daily schedule decreasing access to electives, being in all collaborative classes and having less social interactions because of being stuck with mostly Learning Center students in every class, which is basically the same students in every class, and Learning Center decreasing access to electives only made it harder to talk to friends about the family problems. As an alternative to committing suicide, I chose to be a wizard and make things better by controlling and using magic. After using a magic wand I received for Christmas failed, I found Earth annoying because of the lack of magic to control. I wrote a story called Earth is Annoying. After getting bad grades and having a bad attitude freshman year, my parents fought hard. I got both band and choir, and I got a non-collaborative class, biology. The 8-period daily schedule turned into a block schedule. Unfortunately, not all of the problems from my depression got resolved. My grandma's apartment still stayed the same, and my Uncle George still bailed out on all the traditions. Family didn't do anything about it still. Due to that, and due to the fact my depression made me forget who I am, I became too skeptical on whether or not I would be worth lasting in my life. A lot of other activity not going the right way throughout my years made me even more skeptical. Once sophomore year started, because I was in 2 electives in a non-collaborative class, I had more friends to talk to about family problems. However, it was still hard to talk about it with friends about the situation because my cousin still invites all of my friends over to his place where my grandma lives. I still didn't know how to express the real reason with my grandma's half-in-law apartment, Uncle George's traditions bailout, and senior care. Months later, Uncle George's work was not going too well. They weren't making enough money as much as they used to. Because of that, they were thinking about selling the business for money. Uncle George was promoted a job in Los Angeles as the director. He and his family made the decision to move to Los Angeles for a better job April of my sophomore year. I became so stressed because I didn't know what to do about seeing him and his family. It became even harder to resolve the traditions bailout because of him moving to Los Angeles. Grandma even mentioned that if she still had her old house, George could use it to visit old friends and family. Due to all this, I at first assumed that it would have been better if my grandma had her old house. I blamed it on that. I protested against it, but it didn't do anything. Grandma had to sell her old house because she was too old and scared to live alone. It was too big and too expensive, and it was difficult for her to walk upstairs due to her severe arthritis. After I had it with this criticism with responding with wizardry, August before my junior year of high school started, I wrote a story called Non-Fixable Problems. I still had a difficult time talking to friends about the situation because my cousin invites them over to his place where my grandma lives. I blamed it on attending school with my cousin and instead wished me and him and my aunt would have attended different high schools. I still didn't know how to explain the real issue with my grandma's half-in-law apartment. I judged this as a non-fixable problem, and I also didn't know why my grandma's half-in-law apartment is a non-fixable problem.